We'll call the meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. We will begin with citizen comments. Do we have any citizens who would like to make any comments?
You have one.
Oh. Recognized by the
Just a quick comment that I love the new landscaping over here. And I hope y'all do it many more of the park.
It is something that we are working with, and I did bring it up to the parks, last month's Parks Committee. I brought up Creek Ridge that we talked about before about doing some planting over there, so. And there's some other parks that we have, eyes on, so, yes, we would very much like it, because that is, we'd also like to see if they could reduce as Lisa brought up the other day, the mow zone, to extend the flowers out a little farther. Pretty good.
Well, be sure to send an email to your council person to let them know if you like it, or everyone.
Thank you, citizen. Okay, next agenda item. Consider approving minutes from the April 9th, 2025 meeting and take appropriate action. Anyone have any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, motion to approve the minutes as written.
Yes,
I move.
I will second that.
All right, motion by Al, seconded by Lisa. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Next agenda item, receive staff updates on sustainability initiatives.
All right. Big one you guys already know about because it's on the agenda. We talked about it last week, this active transportation plan and the streets policy. So we'll be speaking about that one today. You guys will have the opportunity for a recommendation. And then that will plan to go to council on June 3rd at the study session. That'll be informational before the regular agenda. We'll have our consultant do the bulk of that presentation, and then pending feedback and everything, the plan is to go for approval this July 15th meeting. Greenhouse gas inventory, I have gotten the last piece of data that I needed for that. And so I plugged all that in. I'm going to do a final review with the company that operates the software just to make sure that we have everything required. So that is pretty much done. Hopefully I'll be able to give an update to the committee with some numbers comparing our 2019 levels to 2023. The lead for city stuff is gearing up. As I think I mentioned last month, we were accepted into a national cohort through the U.S. Green Building Council that facilitates that program. So that helps provide some resources for us to move forward and get that certification. They help with a lot of the data gathering for the requirements. So excited about that. We have our staff kickoff meeting tomorrow. So some of these data points, some of them require GIS, different things from the planning department, economic development, parks. So all of those different things. So as that progresses, I'll try to give you guys an update on that at a future meeting. And then with that, yeah, all of our performance prerequisites we met those in that certification. So we're kind of getting into the meat of the requirements there. The Lights Out proclamation that was done on Earth Day on the 22nd at City Council. So that's Lights Out awareness for spring and fall. So thanks for those that attended. And this was a recommendation of the committee. So we've done some social media and stuff about that. We get some signs out. We had them in the lobby the other day. So people kind of see it, be familiar with that. Grants, no updates currently on the grants. We're still awaiting reimbursement from the Department of Energy for those 2 electric vehicles. And then we've got a couple more funding options. One is trail funding and one is another grant for electric vehicles. For the trail funding, we have completed the preliminary application and been approved. So now we have to submit a detailed application by June. And that's for along Inwood in the Encore easement. And then the other one is, for electric vehicles. Water rebates, I think we're up to 116 toilet replacements and 14 irrigation checkups. The Solar Switch, the signups are still being taken for that. They did the auction in April. So people still have time to sign up for that if they missed the earlier sign up.
And when's the result?
So I think the results, if you've signed up, you'll get them pretty much instantly based on the information you provide on your home. It's when you have the person come out that it might change based on what they're seeing.
I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, the power switch. Yeah, power switch has been completed for the spring. Our next one will be in October. Earth Day, we had some signs out at City Hall and some online outreach. I also tabled at the library. So just kind of test that out, see how that goes during the day. Didn't have a ton of traffic for the about hour and a half, 2 hours that I was there. But really good conversations with the folks that stopped by. A lot of them were learning about sustainability in Farmers Ranch for the first time. So they were excited to see, we had the infographic, the lights out, informational and some other giveaways, LED lights and different things like that. So a lot of them, were pleasantly surprised to know that that's, something that the city is working on. Yesterday, council did their kind of board review. They won't take any formal action until June 17th. But they're all in agreement that the boards that they examined for the sunset review should continue. And they put their recommendations in for all the vacancies that are on boards that have applicants. So we should have a new member starting in July. So that will fill alternate 2. And then the next meeting is June 11th. We'll be meeting at 6 p.m.
Okay. Any follow-up questions for Alex? Okay, that's something else that we talked about. That Lisa and Lauren were just discussing back and forth, just the transportation plan. We'll bring that up when we come to the next item, which is the next agenda item. Consider providing a recommendation to the city council for the adoption of the active transportation plan and take appropriate action.
All right, so you all have received the active transportation plan. I sent it a few weeks ago. It's been included with the packet, so I hope that you all had some time to review that. We had the presentation last month, kind of detailing the process. And so as an advisory board, you guys have the, ability to make a recommendation for council. That's something that would be included in the council staff report. A lot of times they'll ask, how does, this board feel about this project? So since this is kind of under the ownership of sustainability, you guys have that option. So I can answer any questions that you guys might have had on the documents. And then if you wish, you can motion to provide a recommendation, or you can motion to take no action. So I'll open the floor for.
You, in the funding, you're giving the sources of funding,
Yes.
and then I've not really looked at it, but did you ask the council for some money?
So that is not a part of the approval on this. We do have funding available probably for another 2 years through the Trail Bond Fund for a number of projects. That's what we've been using. But the plan itself, they identify funding options through outside sources. But depending on the pace that council wants to roll this out, that will be a conversation. They'll need to have, here's this list that we've compiled through community input, these priorities, the priority areas. It is all going to cost money. There's kind of some preliminary estimates based on the facility type. So that would be something that council, probably after they approve this plan, would look into, is this something that we increase, capital project, funding? Do we need to allocate more toward our, however they want to do that in the budget cycle? Or in the past, they've done the Trail Bond Fund. So that's, not necessarily a part of if they're choosing to adopt this plan, they're not changing the budget for it at that moment. We've got a number of projects in the work with Denton Drive, the West Side Art Trail that have dedicated funding sources, the Rawhide Trail expansion, and then we're seeking outside funding through TxDOT for the Inwood Trail along the Encore easement. So those have funding associated with it. A lot of these future projects past 2 years do not right now, which is, I think, fairly normal. But that would be kind of a decision of council in the future.
So the next question would be is, okay, funding, and then what is the benefit to the city? How does it benefit us?
Yeah, so, yeah, just the providing active transportation options. So, you know, a lot of this stuff takes a good amount of time. Doesn't happen by accident that these trails appear, these sidewalk connections get fixed. So, on like the pedestrian side, you'll see in the maps in the document, there's, you know, areas of interest, kind of priority areas that are around places that people would tend to walk to. Schools are a big one, city facilities, the library, the rec center. So like for pedestrian infrastructure, you know, those are the things. So instead of, if you're, you know, living close enough, you know, within reason to where you could bike or walk to the rec center, it's providing options to do that safely versus getting in your car to go to the rec center to walk on the treadmill, then get in your car to go home. So different things like that, connection, especially in the dark area, so people can walk safely, you know, in that area, you know, all those, you know, with the Star Center and different things like that, getting to restaurants. So there's an economic aspect of that. But a lot of it does on the safety side. So trying to make it safer for people that maybe don't have the ability to drive, maybe they're 15 years old, not a license, you know, to get around the city in a way that doesn't require a car.
Well, one of the reasons I'm asking these questions is because in one of our meetings, separate group meeting, there was a lot of talk about this accident in Valley View.
Mhm.
And bikes are getting hit,
Yeah.
and there are so many options. City of Philadelphia is a classic example of the road diets and people walking and things like that. When you're presenting to people,
Mhm.
the less is more, safety is number one. for them.
Yes. No, and then that's exactly what we heard from the community and all the surveys and the public engagement is safety is number one. So all the projects, those different categories that they were rated on, safety was actually ahead of connectivity. So it's like you want a safe, connected system.
And I'm taking Dart.
Yeah.
I'm walking. In Dallas itself, to walk from Dart Station to is really bad. It's dangerous.
Mhm.
Right? So that's the reason I'm saying that it's personally impacting me, that there's no active transportation plan. Especially us over here, we be walking or taking a bike over here. So anyway, great work. Just presentation now.
Quick question, has any discussion been had regarding timing the lights to not incentivize speeding?
Yes, so that was something that was, you brought up before. I've kind of tried to get that with our streets department. So I think we are on an older system for streetlight timing.
Mhm.
It is something I know that especially Valley View is a main one. And the conversation we've had recently is trying to time the lights with the other cities. So, you know, for Midway, you know, Marsh, I guess going like northbound, southbound, trying to make sure that our lights are timed. So we're reducing idling. It seems like we're off a cycle kind of from these other cities. So as you're going north through Farmers Branch, and I know pass through traffic is another discussion, but if our timing on our light cycle is shorter, you know, they're driving through these cities, they're getting to Farmers Branch and they're idling, you know, waiting on the light cycle. So that is something that is being discussed and hopefully worked on in the future.
What about, areas like, Red Hawk on Valley View, where it just changes, there's no cars, it just changes and just blocks Valley View, and obviously people run it all the time.
Yeah, I'll have to get more information on that particular one.
Yeah, that specific one is, by the McDonald's.
Okay.
And there's a red light, it just changes, even though there's no cars trying to cross that way. It's where that condo development was done by.
Oh, yes,
It sounds.
Yeah.
The town was right behind Ace Hardware.
And it makes sense that that
Valley.
if you live there, you should have a chance to get out onto the main street, but it shouldn't just be changing when there's nobody there.
Understood. Mhm.
Is the streets department who we contact if we want to talk about lowering speed limit?
I believe so. I do think that they have like a process for speeds, speed bumps, different things like that, sidewalk repair. So yeah, it would be Public Works in the Streets Department.
As far as the transportation plan goes, if it is approved, I mean, it's obviously a long-term plan. This isn't something. Would it be kind of, they would find a prioritization of different projects, like, okay, first, let's talk about the safety aspect of the transportation plan with the sidewalk repairs and installation of like better bike infrastructure. So it's safer for kids to ride bikes and adults, obviously. And then move on from there, different aspects of the plan. Is that just kind of like, okay, the plan's in place, so how do we want to move forward? What are we moving forward with on it this year, next year, 5 years?
Yes, so I think it's page, I think it starts on page 8. So that is where it's broken down between short and long term. So short term is kind of 0 to 5 years. Like I said, we still have some projects that are ongoing that are, going to be going after we adopt this plan that might not be fully spelled out because they're already being funded and worked on. But so they have projects that score the highest based on those categories. So safety, connectivity are the big ones. And then because they scored higher, they're in the short term. So that's kind of where we want to focus first. And then in longer term, that would be, ones that might take a lot more effort, dedicated, they might be a lot more expensive and they scored a little bit lower. But in the first one, so there's some projects around, I think Janie Stark, that, scored really high on safety. And so that's why they're prioritized up there. And they listed within both the near term and long term, at least one of every different project type. So you have the bicycle boulevards, you have shared use paths, trails, bike lanes. They're all listed, separate. So it's not like I'm just going to do only, bike boulevards or only trails in the first 5 years. It's kind of spread out for different options.
So if we make the approval to recommend this, we're saying that like, these are the things that we should do. And then someone else goes in and like determines whether or not we have the budget or starts to look for the budgeting for that.
Yeah, so it'd be, if council chooses to adopt the plan, that provides staff direction. So it's up to then, different staff within Public Works mostly, to, how do we implement this? And what can we do with the existing resources? Okay, we've got funding through Trail Bond for another 2 years. We think we can get these projects done. Then it's staff to take it to council and say, hey, here's what we think we can do with current funding allotments. If you want to see more, then we need to, look at other funding resources. And the main thing that this plan does too is by having it allows us to access outside funding easier. Because if you're a, organization that gives out grants for active transportation, you're more likely to give it to a city that has a plan. So that's the big part of it too. Is it helps us secure outside funding. So hopefully we're using less of, bonds, less of, capital improvement budget. We're taking as much money from the other cities through outside stations.
Some of it seemed like design recommendations, like for sidewalks and ADA compliance and stuff like that, which I guess maybe those would be evaluated going through and looking at the streets, what their conditions are, and then if we adopt the plan, is that kind of how it would work?
Yeah, especially on the pedestrian stuff. So the pedestrian, like most of the projects listed are like trailer shared use path. It does kind of lay out the areas of focus for sidewalk. So there is funding available for that we have now that we allocate. It's very expensive to build sidewalks and tear them up and do that. So that's why those kind of priority focus areas exist. So that's kind of where we start the search. Here's where, let's say if we have, I don't know, X amount of money for sidewalk renovations, we want to focus in these areas close to schools because we know that, if you walk by Vivian Field at 3 in the afternoon, there's a lot of kids walking there. So it's like, are those sidewalks in safe condition for, children to walk? you know, around the rec center or the library, we see a lot of that, as well. But that's kind of the guiding portion on that.
Any further comment? Do we have a motion to approve, to recommend the, active transportation plan for city council?
I move.
A second? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll seconds. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Lauren does such a good job.
Alex, this like skips through council. Could there be like regular updates?
Yes, yeah, it'll probably be something that we incorporate kind of in just my staff updates over trails. I don't know how much involvement I'll specifically have on the implementation on this, and some of it was more depending on the project, on the streets or, but yes, I'll make a note to provide kind of just regular updates to the group. And I'll do so kind of on the other trails that are ongoing. I'll make a habit to get information.
Did you hear anything from the consultant about the whole like bike path, like on Google Maps? And getting, like.
I sent an email, but I'll follow up because I don't remember if I got a response.
Yeah.
Next agenda item is consider providing a recommendation to the city council for the adoption of complete streets policy and take appropriate action.
All right, so very similar, kind of as we were going through the active transportation plan, one of the things that we wrote within the request for proposals on the consultant is we wanted to, you know, a replacement for the trail master plan focused on active transportation. That's the one that we just talked about. But we also asked for the deliverable of a complete streets policy. So I talked about that and basically, I talked about that last month. Another big reason to have a complete streets policy, other than the fact it's a good practice for transportation planning, is it really does help us secure funding. We received transportation development credits from the Council of Governments by meeting certain criteria. We received it this last go round kind of by the skin of our teeth. There's 20 policies or programs you have to adopt, and we had 10. We scored very well within those 10, so we got kind of the second tier of funding. But every cycle, the requirements get a little bit tougher. So having a complete streets policy really will help us with that. On the surface, you know, with policy, and I mentioned this last month, it's a design approach for all future transportation projects, focusing on safety and convenient access for all modes of travel. So whenever we're looking at a street project that needs to be, you know, renovated or revitalized, we're looking not just for cars. We're looking, what does the pedestrian, you know, infrastructure look like? Is this a candidate for a bike lane? You know, let's confirm with the active transportation plan. No, it's not. It's not saying that every street is going to have all these amenities. So there will be times where, you know, we'll basically do our due diligence per the policy, and there will be maybe outrageous costs to implement certain infrastructure there. There's exceptions for stuff like that. So it's not putting a bike lane on everything. It's just kind of, as we're looking at projects, we're ripping up a road, you know, and kind of starting from scratch a little bit. How do we replace it? And how do we think about other users for that? So bikes, you know, cars, pedestrians, you know, people on wheelchairs, different things like that. So that is, and this was also sent to you, and this one was a little bit shorter, so that's good. And then it kind of calls out a lot of the design standards to like accessibility standards, American with Disabilities Act, different things like that. So making sure that it's practice that, you know, we should be doing. So it doesn't really change how we operate too much. You know, there's exceptions in the policy for a variety of different reasons. It's not saying we're putting every type of transportation amenity on every type of road, because cost and in some places it wouldn't be utilized. We'd be better off spending the money on a different road to add pedestrian infrastructure or something like that. So, yeah, that's the bulk of that.
Is this, all planning and zoning?
So this one will be, a combination of planning and public works. So those will be kind of ones to review. So when we're looking at, different projects, and part of the reason that we timed this is so was after the comprehensive plan was done. So we want to make sure that the principles of the comprehensive plan were reflected in the active transportation plan, and same with complete streets. So that'll require both public works and the planning and zoning department to document some of these data sources on whenever we're doing any kind of roadway project.
Is, when you're talking about getting the funding and we ranked, we said about 10th. Is that national or is that Texas?
Oh, so this is through the Council of Governments, the North Central Texas Council of Governments.
Okay.
They have it's called the Metropolitan Policy Bundle. And so they list 20 different policies that they want cities to adopt to kind of help make the transportation system more cohesive across the region.
Who were like the top cities?
So, I don't have a list in front of me. The Dallas, Fort Worth, and, the larger cities all scored really well on that. As far as like the smaller cities, I think we scored pretty well within that. So basically, it's a two-part application. You have to have a minimum of 10 of these adopted
Right.
programs or policies. So we had 10 this last go round. So we met that threshold. And then within all the categories, there's points assigned. So there's 3 tiers. So we could get up to 1 million in transportation development credits if we had enough points. We did not. We were at 750,000, but we also weren't at the lowest at 500,000. But if you don't meet those 10 programs, policies, then you're not able to access any of it. So.
So it's basically, it's cities in North Texas, basically kind of Dallas, Fort Worth and the surrounding areas there. Just seeing about going through the scoring, see how well they do, and then, excuse me, is that information available? Like, if I just wanted to look up?
Yeah, and I can provide that.
Yeah.
So I believe it's public. I think they have, because it gets approved by the Regional Transportation Council. So that gets approved by them and should list all the cities, but I might have a copy of
Just
this.
because it never hurts to someone who scored really high and look at them, see, get some ideas and see how they did it. If they did something that was they did something very efficiently and it was something they say, wow, that's really crazy. I never thought of it like that way. And that's real efficient and doesn't cost a lot of money, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, some of the stuff that interacts with sustainability is obviously on there. Having a sustainability plan got us, one of the 10. Having the clean fleet policy, that's another point. I think a lot of stuff on the police response and training to accidents that helped with points. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to look and see on the other cities. Do they get 20 or is most people at that 10, 12, and just getting past?
Right.
Do these two give us the minimum threshold to get to that $1 million one?
So, I'm not sure with just this one, and I'll also probably change the scoring. So it gets a little bit more stringent as more cities kind of adopt these. So, maybe a policy that they introduced 10 years ago. Okay, now everyone has it, so we're not going to require, that you're not going to get points for that this year. So since we were pretty close on that threshold last year, we're kind of looking towards the future and, kind of having our best estimate on what they're going to expect from cities in order to be eligible. And this is one that we feel pretty strongly is going to continue to be a requirement.
And is this yearly?
It's, I believe it's every 3 fiscal years.
Okay. And when was the last one? I'm sorry.
2020, I would say.
And maybe next year.
Yeah, and they've announced when they're going to kind of release the criteria and different things. So, it helps us for that. And then just also, it's a good way to look at construction projects. It's, if we're going to spend the money, if we're going to be ripping out the road, potentially moving utilities, different things like that, what can we do to maximize the value within that space?
I know that a lot of this is probably around safety and stuff like that, but are there any specifications or guidelines that would like help with heat island effect or anything like that associated that we've talked about before? Or is it all just mostly engineering and like safety sort of?
I would say more so on the active transportation plan. That was one of the things that they brought up in is like thermal comfort.
Yeah, I know the shading.
Yeah, shading and different things like that. Complete streets, I mean, I think that is part of a general thought, but it's not really spelled out here. That's more kind of within the active transportation plan, so it's, I guess, kind of covered through there. It's not really explicitly stated in the complete streets policy.
Any further comment? Okay, do we have a motion to provide a recommendation to the city council for the adoption of the complete streets policy?
Motion?
Oh, Val motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Lisa seconds. All in favor?
Hopefully.
Wait. Oh. We're voting.
So motion and a second on the complete streets policy.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Lisa, you second
Mm-hmm.
Lisa second. But, we kind of bad.
Amazon.
No, it's fine. Say the city money. Next agenda item, discuss upcoming elections for committee chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary.
All right, so we have officer positions spelled out in the resolution of the committee that are 1-year terms, so they will expire at the end of June. So between, this agenda item now and I guess next meeting, we'll be accepting nominations for the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and secretary. So chairperson currently is Lauren, the vice chair filling in tonight is for Lauren, and the chair role is Price. So that is responsibility of a vice chair is to facilitate the meetings when the chairperson's out, and secretary who's in charge of meeting minutes, which is Ted.
Who does a fabulous job.
Fabulous.
So there's no rules that you can only serve 1 term as an officer, anything like that. Open nominations. If you don't want to nominate, you can nominate yourself. If you want to nominate someone else, if you want to nominate someone privately, you can contact me between now and our next meeting. And then we will be voting for officer positions in June with terms starting July.
And do any of the people currently holding the officer positions, are there terms on the committee up
I can,
before the expiration of the following?
I will get back. I'll look that up, and
Okay.
then while you guys are discussing, I'll interrupt it afterward. Have the y'all's dates all remembered.
No, that's fine. I mean, the reason I ask is that if everyone is still,
I believe everyone is, I don't think anyone's term expired this year. Or, so I think it would all be starting in 2026.
then I would nominate all the people that are currently
If someone else wants to be secretary, I'm okay with it.
in the position.
Support that nomination of all.
Okay.
I second.
Who needed
Next.
I'm not allowed to weigh in.
I'm just, if everyone is willing to do another, stint as an officer. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as secretary goes, I know that's something that's more of a, it's kind of like, I quit serving on an HOA board, like, everybody should volunteer for it once, and then once you're done, you can pass it off.
We can share the love on the secretary position,
Yeah.
or if even if Ted says no and everyone votes for it. And alternates are eligible too, so just throwing all that out there. We've never had anyone bad in any of the chair, vice chair, secretary. I know anyone here would do a great job in any of those roles.
And
So,
when do the alternates come on if they're approved?
if they're approved, it would be July. So they would be approved onto the board June 17th, and so they would be eligible to start in July. And I looked at, no one's term expires until 2026.
Well, that would seem kind of like a not very nice thing to do, to have a person come on and be like, oh, hey, guess what? Also, you get to do this thing.
When did our committee start? Do you remember?
Our committee started in, I have this written down actually. Another day.
I was thinking about it.
Have you been through since the beginning?
Yeah,
Yeah, April 2021
Wow.
was when it was reestablished by council, and I believe we started our first meeting in August 2021. So we've got quite a few folks that have been here since the beginning. One in the crowd.
any further discussion regarding nominations and elections? We'll make official nominations.
Yeah, so next meeting, we'll have the official action of appointing or voting for new members.
Right.
If you change your mind and you say, hey, I want to run for vice chair, secretary, chairperson, you can send me an email. It's anonymous. We can do blank votes, whatever. Yeah, you have from now until next meeting to nominate yourself or a friend.
Do we know if Lauren is open to continuing?
Here to
I think so. They seem to be more than willing to do it.
Silence is,
You're in.
agreement.
Mhm.
So our committee term starts in July.
Yes, I believe so. The terms expire for all of you. I believe it's June 30th is the last day. And then depending on which year, based on when you started. Sorry, shouldn't close this. Yeah, everyone's expires June 30th. So it looks like Jasper's 2026, Val's 2026, Lauren's 2026, Bryce's 2026, Suzette 2026, and then Ted's 2027, Lisa's 2027, and Al's 2027.
Is that technically when we can't be on the committee anymore?
I believe that our current bylaws say 2 3-year terms, and then you would have to phase off. So you could do 6 years. For some of the starting members, when they reestablish the committee, their first term is only 2 years, so it's staggered. So we don't potentially have the whole committee rolling off. So then after those 2 terms, so trying to think if anyone's, so Lauren's second term, I believe, ends on June 30th, 2026. So I think at that point, she would be off the committee, at least for a cycle. And then she could choose to come back on, run for council, run for president, run for P and Z, whatever she wants to do. Stay
She's
home,
very ambitious.
stay home, not come to meetings on Wednesday nights.
Let's just keep her honest for a minute.
But if, like, for people like me that were alternates when it started, does that still count as a term or no?
That impacts it slightly. So you are technically still on your first term because your time as an alternate doesn't count towards a term.
That, okay.
And I think Lisa is the same way because I think you started as alternate.
I also started as an alternate.
So yeah, you're on your first term to 2027.
I started as an alternate.
I think I did.
Yeah. So Val, you're still on your first term, I think, until 2026. And then you'll have the option if you want to be on the second term, even though you I think you had a partial term with the alternate. And
Yeah.
it gets rather confusing. That's why I have to check it.
Okay, well,
Okay.
we will, everybody put on your thinking caps and see who you want to be in the officer positions, one way or another. We'll keep her moving. But, all right, so next agenda item, receive man, today's rough. Receive subcommittee updates. First up is built and natural environment.
No updates this particular month. Chance to talk, so. Other than the stuff we had already kind of been trying to move along, which is, finding the parks and stuff that we can suggest landscaping or rewilding for. So, but no new updates.
Okay. Communications.
No, we don't have any updates right now.
Are there any city events coming up?
Oh,
I think, isn't,
we just did Fish and Fun at the end of April.
isn't Denton Drive, something coming up?
July.
I think they're doing that. I don't know.
Oh, wait, no, not, they're doing
They're
it,
on Memorial Day.
Day,
they're not doing it as often as they used to.
which,
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing that. I think they kind of summer and like having to cancel some of the heat. I think they kind of got rid of that.
Yeah, there's that.
I apologize. I'm not super plugged in on the
Yeah.
special events.
Yes,
For communication going to the council or the, like, not national, yeah, the birds,
Lights out.
I saw.
would that be an event that we could?
Yeah.
did you go?
I think I did. As far as I remember.
I think I was there. No.
Ted was there, I was there, Lauren was there.
Yeah. Nice. Are we allowed to like gift signs to the council members to put in their yards? Or like
If they,
gift,
if they have an interest, I could probably give them
Like-
one of those ones. But
you know?
We had a guy with an aviary ask us for signs after we presented.
Oh, that was nice. Well,
yeah, I gave them one of the old ones.
Didn't he?
He's like, oh man, it's so cool. Look at all these birds. Put a sign out front.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to move signs around the egret nursery and.
Yeah, that affects
Trying to keep those two things separate.
that affects my walking route. Only if I walk over toward B Street, you know, sometimes like when it's not egret season, I walk through the park, but when it is egret season, I walk along Valley View because
Bird too.
birds, you see it falling from the trees as you're walking, so.
Birds.
Love birds, don't love getting pooped on. Water conservation, nothing really too much, just the meters.
I did speak, you guys brought it up last time. I've let the utilities know that if they need people to demo the platform. And then that you guys would be willing to. He said that they've got some residents and slash staff members that live in the city that they're gonna try it out first. I told them, I was like, well, we got a committee.
Yeah,
If you guys need a troubleshoot, they're gonna be doing some training upcoming with the customer service representatives. So I weasel my way to get on that training too.
okay,
So that they can start to ask questions and, figure out what type of questions people will be asking. My plan is to attend that, kind of get a better familiarity with the software. Hopefully can work with you all to communications to put out some information because it's going to be one of those things. It's a big rollout. We want people to use the tool effectively, and we also don't want them to have to call a ton of times to learn how something's working, and kind of flood the phone lines. So any sort of resources, I've already kind of let them know we're willing, excited to help on this.
and I do, at work, I do, kind of screenshot instructional guides for whenever there's a software rollout and I don't know what I'm doing. I go through the training, but then I take screenshots, put them on different slides. For step A, then step B, then step C. If A, then B, then B, then C, and that kind of thing. So it's just very visual to help in case people need that, you draw that up with whoever is in that does the graphic design for the city and everything for guides for
Yeah.
people.
If Itron is the vendor, which I think that is the vendor for water meters, they will have a dashboard. I haven't seen their dashboard lately, but that will give us how many meters, there's any outages, etc. Any leaks detection, how much consumption is there. So it's gonna have a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, it'll have the whole customer report. Try to confirm.
Individually,
vendor.
and they'll integrate to the smart hub or something like that, where we can go in and access.
And the system is Temetra.
Metron Pawnee,
No, Temetra, Temetra. I think that might be the portal system. So we can look that up and see what general.
who's the vendor? That's it.
The North Texas, the Native Plant Society of North Texas is doing a level 1 native landscaping certification class coming up in May. No, we're in May. Yeah, this weekend, sorry, yes, sorry, my brain is. And it's a 2-day, it's a Zoom class on Saturday, and then they do a walk in the Laura Bush Native Texas Plant Garden at SMU on Sunday. So it is $45, but it, I think it's gonna be cool. So just let everybody know.
What is it?
It's a native landscaping certification. So like native landscape design for the Native Plant Society of North Texas.
Native Plant Society of North Texas.
Yes, you can learn about native plants, what's good in your landscape, how to,
Okay.
I mean, I'm speaking about this as if I've done it, which I haven't, but I'm planning on doing it this weekend. So I can report back to everyone, but they only offer it in the spring and the fall. So it's like a 3-level course, because then after that, it's like native plants for pollinators or native plants for birds. And so they have like a more in-depth
Specified.
programming after you have to be the first one to do any of the other ones, so.
It sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not, see the North Central chapter, but I don't.
I'll forward you the.
Totally.
Okay.
Should I be putting this under communications, Lisa, or under built natural?
I don't know.
Or is it even committee related?
It's not really committee related, other than I'm communicating it to you. I did send you the one about the little park, little urban, little prairies and,
Roots for Wings or the Frisco one, yes.
Yeah. okay, I just wanted to make sure.
For that software to measure, how about Icon does have a YouTube video. Something, but I just looked it up.
Anything further from the subcommittees? Next agenda item, receive an update from committee members on activities attended. I don't remember if it was March or April that I went to the library meeting and the parks meeting. I think it was April, so I can at the risk of repeating myself, but I did go to the Parks and Rec meeting, I believe in April after our meeting, and I did speak with them about Creek Ridge Park and letting them know what a great job they did with Holiday Park right here, and suggesting that even a nice section of Creek Ridge Park just for a native flower rewilding would be very nice, and it also save them a lot of money in maintenance long term.
Where is this park?
Creek Ridge Park is on Webb Chapel in between 635 and Valley View. It is on the east side of the road, and it is inaccessible other than risking life and limb.
Oh.
So Webb Chapel is not a street where people drive slowly, and there's no sidewalks, there's no lights. There's no access to it other than crossing an uncontrolled street unless you went all the way to 635 or to Webb Chapel, but then there's no sidewalks to get to it. So, but then someone brought up is that a prairie park or something, or it's like a little patch of.
I think it's mostly native stuff. Like just like.
I can't remember. Someone brought it up that it might be black soil prairie or something.
Blackland Prairie,
Blackland prairie.
Blackland Prairie is what the region is called.
Yeah. which is okay, but it's still just grass that gets mowed, so.
Well, if they're not, yeah, if the city's not letting it run its natural life cycle, because there should be wildflowers, there should be all of the things, not just the native grasses.
Things, yeah.
So if they're not letting it run its natural life cycle and just mowing it, then it's not really.
Got pretty bad Google reviews too. Everybody gives it 1 star. Free Creek Park, yeah, like it's not even a park.
Well, yeah,
It's just a field that the city puts.
the city mowed, and they got a nice sign.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just wondering, like, what's, I always get it wrong, Independence Park, or what's the one that's kind of seen it? What's the one with it's basically just a couple of benches and some old trees, but the ground is like, it's kind of
Like Bicentennial,
which one?
Bicentennial
That's,
Park.
yeah.
Close. Independence Park.
Not close, yeah, but I mean, that's something.
That's another one that we've brought up before.
The problem with that one is it's so much shade. It'd be really tough to grow anything unless it was some sort of like shade tolerant planting.
Yeah, I mean, there's shade garden.
Yeah, but that's the event that I went to. Anyone else had any events? Good.
Last Friday, I took students from Brookhaven to Richland. So we have a Texas Tree Foundation tree nursery there.
Okay.
To walk with the students.
Nice.
It's like less than 3 hours. Well, a little over 3 hours. They ran long because there was a lot of questions. And that's students.
That's good though.
We're trying to roll out green teams at every campus. But different campuses have different aspects. So the Brookhaven Green Team Club was very interested in that one, so schedule them too.
My little Eastern Redbud is doing pretty well. It's still not as many flowers as I would like but it's still only 2 years old. So. It did sprout very nice leaves, so that's really good. Because every winter I think I kill
Me too. Every winter, every spring, I'm like, please, come on.
everybody can do it.
I think like the first 3 years are like really when it's establishing.
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe you can make it.
Yeah, after like the third, my one friend who's the master gardener, she said it's
So a lot of fun.
Sleep Creek leaf. It's 30 years the big leaf where it grows.
okay, good to know. Sleep Creek Beats.
Sleep Creek.
That's cool.
Any other events?
You're fine. Save it and I'll get the rest.
Any other events attended? The events coming up that you know, besides
I'm gonna share something, maybe just a little random, but like Samsung has this whole like program for high school students and stuff called Solve for Tomorrow. And they just announced the winners for the session that we ended at the beginning of this year. And they always have a sustainability category, and the sustainability category winner was for Academy of Aerospace Engineering in Windsor, Connecticut, for heat map, which looks at urban heat island effect. I remember hearing about this important stuff that they developed some sort of technology to help with measuring urban heat island effect. That so
Okay.
Yeah.
That's permanent.
yeah, sustainability, yeah.
And with the heat map.
Yeah.
Keep them engaged.
Our GIS department has a thermal drone now.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we're hoping as facilities, we can line up some and flyovers for hot and cold spots. Summer and winter. So, yeah, we're not on the list yet. They're still mapping, but we're ready for the thermal.
Good. Anyone else?
I did, when I was driving, I saw, when if you exit TI Boulevard off of the express, right there, they have this like rewilding area that's express. They sponsored it. It's a restoration area. I took a picture of the sign, wildflowers and pollinator habitat.
It's on TI Boulevard?
Well, it's when you exit the toll, the express toll and go down to TI Boulevard. It's right there on this kind of like, not really anything you can do with strip of land.
Mhm.
But it might be worth reaching out to them and seeing, I don't know if we have any overlap or they have any property that they own around Farmers Branch that maybe they would be willing to sponsor another, I mean, like, I don't really understand how that works. I don't know if like they own, because I know like where they were storing all that stuff for TxDOT right there on Josie or right on the service road, like we couldn't really do anything about it because they own the property.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking maybe if there's other pieces of property that they manage or are responsible for that are not,
So that was TxDOT.
it says Texpress. I'll send you the,
Yeah, those guys.
I'll send you the picture. But you know, if we can try to partner with other entities outside, near the city, but that are not the city, that might, you know,
Mhm.
allow us to option.
Okay. Penultimate item, discuss agenda items for future sustainability committee meeting. Anyone have any ideas, possible agenda items?
Okay, I have an idea. So we've had DART here once before. And with the bills that are looming, it looks like their funding will be cut, right? It's the homestead increases. So I'm curious to know what are they doing with the money that they're getting reducing? Do you think that's too on the nose or?
No, I mean, it's just that they're gonna, they're, if I was going to guess, I was gonna say that they would say, well, obviously, you know, we're eyeing service reductions in low use areas and, you know, fleet reductions and cost savings, blah, 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 so.
From what I can tell with my adventures on DART, it's almost all GoLink Ubers. From what I've used.
That's what it is.
There's very little actual buses. At least in my own use. So I'm just curious if that's more cost effective than buses and drivers. And if that's their goal.
I mean, it's gonna depend on ridership numbers and taking the stats of that. So, as far as buses go, I don't even know what the latest on the Silver Line is because they were,
Right.
it was getting ready to go, but then all of a sudden they're saying, well, no, but they're still running the test trains and everything.
I would say let's wait and see, depending on the status of the bills in the legislature.
Yeah.
And if those get approved, then that would be a good update to have just the kind of dust settles on how they can operate moving forward. How do those funding changes impact ridership services provided to Farmers Branch? So.
Something else that came up a little is something that I just asked about, is there still any, how's our relationship with Addison?
I mean, we've been working, so for example, like the trail that we're looking at along Inwood in the Encore easement, the goal is to connect that to the work that Addison is doing on their trail there. So I believe they're like gonna write us a letter of support in our pursuit of the grant funding. So as far as I know, pretty decent.
Just because, you know, we're just talking about how their water, the headwater is for, you know, for our flowage down there. They kind of control the flowage of that, just seeing maybe like maybe warmer months, if there was a way that they might be able to release a little more water for us there. I know it's is that stormwater that kind of controls the Thunder Hospital, Rawhide Creek and all that?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good question for Eric,
Yeah.
or Shane, because I think he was working on one of those projects, but probably Eric. Was a couple, was it just last month? 2 months ago.
2 months.
Or-
I think it's flat.
Right?
Was it
Maybe it was.
No. March.
Okay, that feels wrong, but
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished for him. He did such a good job, P and Z, but I didn't.
We didn't expect that we were all gonna be into it.
I think we all like.
Yeah. Anyone else for any future agenda items? Seeing none, we'll go to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Suzette, second? Second. All in favor of adjournment? Any opposed? Adjourned 7:00 even.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, everyone.
To the comment.
That's good.